I'm going to start the presentation by showing you the technician scheduling board. Each one of these cells on this board represents a service work order, a task for someone to go out to the field or in the office to perform this task. If I click on any one of these cells, some information is shown at the bottom about that task. I have the ability to right click and perform some other functions on that task. I have the ability to add a task to the system by right-clicking on the board. If I right-click on an unassigned technician row, then I would be creating a task that is not assigned to a technician. But if I know that I want to assign the task to this case Michael, I can right-click on that role, and Michael is loaded as the default technician on that job. The very first thing I do when I start a task or a service work order, I start typing the description for the request, the call reason. So customer called, there is a problem with the unit. Of course, I can type in as many lines as I want as needed, and at some point I could timestamp that entry, or I could just select the reason for the call from one of the predefined call reasons. So I could accept that as the call reason. The next thing I do, I select the customer for the call. Now, there's three ways for me to find the customer number for the call. I can go to the Sage 100 customer database and find the customer that I'm looking for, or I can go to my contract database and find this by putting in the item number or the serial number, find a specific item that the call is about. I also have the ability to search for the address. So if I'm given the address number, then I can here look for the contract database for that address and find the task. So of course, once you select the customer, all your functions from the Sage 100s are supported. Things such as memo pop-ups, credit limit verification. So you'll be able to, the system would notify you of that information. So to add a task to the system, that's all I need to do. Enter a description for the call and a customer, and I can accept that. And the task number 2841 is added to the system. So if I wanted to add additional information, let's go over some of the additional fields that are available to us. I can select the task type, and I can have as many different task types as I want installed, set up in the system: installation, preventive maintenance, and the system allows me for each task type link certain files that are loaded into the created dispatch, things such as checklist to be performed as part of that visit, and these tasks are loaded into the document path and are displayed on the technician's handheld device, so they'll see that information. Of course, any additional files needed, you can link, drag and drop and add to this folder things such as the map, the blueprint of a location, if we would have for performing the function. You have the ability to enter the task status, and again, task status are user defined and let you manage your workflow. The salesperson, the territory, the billing frequency, most of this information are loaded from the customer and the contract number that is entered. So if I select the contract for this task, then the information would get rolled up into contract for the purpose of job costing. I'm able to enter a nature of task for this visit. So I basically select that, and the system is capable of doing skill matching. So if I enter an item, then I have the ability to see all the repair work done on that piece of equipment, and I can drill down to any one of this activity and see the work that has been done on that piece of thing, and that could be serialized, and it will basically filter with the serial number. So I can also manage the equipment. So the machine, any machinery used to do the jobs, we also have a scheduling board which would show you whether or not, if it's a welding machine or a bobcat that is used to do the work, if it's available or not. If the work is being done on more than one equipment, if you receive a call to have someone be out to work on multiple pieces of equipment, you have the ability to enter multiple pieces of equipment, each with its serial number, the contract that is used to manage the warranty and service, the labor code, and you also are able to enter more than one technician. So if you a crew of 2 to 3 people need to go to that field, you can specify that. There's also a crew maintenance program that if the enter technician is a crew manager, the additional tasks are loaded here. So, so the task contains information about the customer, the nature of the work that we need to do. Then we have the concept of dispatch. Dispatches are your appointments. When you that's the transaction where you're able to enter labor and material information into the system. So if I create a dispatch transaction, and notice that dispatch transactions start with the task number and they have a sequential number, and the information is loaded from the service work order. All relevant information are loaded into the dispatch, and you have the ability to enter the specific items, the parts that were used as part of doing the work. So the equipment number that you're going to perform the work on is entered on the task service work order, and then the dispatch you enter the parts that were consumed as part of doing this repair works. If one of this bag was used, and the system would do availability. Notice you also have access to warehouse codes, so you can manage your technician truck inventory availability. Then you're able to enter the labor, and then there's different labor codes that you can enter into the system, and for each one you can enter the rate, and you can enter the description of the work done. You can click on start and end. The system will capture the time, and all of this information is kept and is loaded into the invoice transaction entered. So here, if I wanted to go through the entire process, I can close this dispatch and create an invoice for this service call that we enter. So the workflow is such that the call is received, the call is entered into the system, then a dispatch is created when someone is to go out to the field. When the person is in the field and completes the job, they usually would change the status to job completed and enter the labor and material that was used in the field. Someone in the office would bring that dispatch up and review the labor and material billing, make sure the billing is done properly, then change the status to ready to invoice perhaps. And someone in accounting would run a program from the menu and create all the invoices that have a status of ready to invoice. So the system is very flexible and lets you set up your own workflows as to how you want to invoice. And of course, if your processes are such that the technician is allowed to create the invoice in the field, then that technician will just bring up the dispatch transaction and change by changing the status to close would basically create an invoice. And here we support the concept of the billing frequencies, so you can have customers that are set up to be received weekly invoices or daily or monthly, and the system would create the invoice accordingly. In this case, I just created an invoice. The system is letting me know that that was the last dispatch for the task, and it's asking if I want to close the task. I'll say yes. The task is removed from my scheduling board, and of course an invoice is generated in the sales order module for that customer. Mention scheduling board views. We have very many different scheduling board views, and each view has its own filters as well as the content of the cell. As you set up each view, scheduling board view, you have the ability to enter any filters. You can filter for a certain task type, certain price priority, range of items, territory, if you have managers that manage different territories. System is fully capable of letting you manage multiple offices, and each office would have its own views created. Views are linked to different users, and each user has the ability to have one or multiple views created so that it's only accessed by that person. Of course, we let you enter the content of the cell. You can select up to 5 fields from the list of available fields. So nature of the task, address, depending on what is it that you want to show in that field, you can do that. And you can change the label of the field in here. Notice we're only showing the task, all the other and equipment. So you have the ability to remove the field label if by looking at the data, in this case American Business Futures, you know that that's the customer name. But for other situations, you can have the system display the label, letting you know what the field it is that you're looking at. Of course, you have the ability to have the scheduling board show you every day, or you show every 2 hours in a separate column. You have the ability to have the system show you technicians as dates, or technicians as rows, if that would be more preferred. And if you prefer to do that, you can show bars and to show the status of the task and the dispatch, and you can have each view show so many days back and forth. So this is a quick overview of the entered task, as to how a task is entered, and it is invoiced. Scheduling board, some of the other things that it does, you have the ability to have the system show you the items that are in the sales order. So if you want to have visibility over what items are going to have to be, what equipment you're going to be working on, you have the ability to do that. Of course, we mentioned you can generate an email right from here. You can bring up Google Map, MapQuest, which we'll look at in a bit later. You could also look at all the tasks for a specific job, or all the tasks that are for the dispatches that are, if you're doing a lot of installations, for the dispatches that are for installation job, and I'll show you how we can manage those installations. Next, I'm going to show you how you could create tasks from the sales order entry program and load them on the scheduling board. We let you manage the process of installation of any piece of equipment in the field. So again, you select the customer number as to who the customer is. Now the system would perform few functions. One is it would let you create a job right from the sales order. If you from that job you can load like a template all the billing information, all the parts that need to be included as part of doing. So if you're doing a tank installation or a gas pump installation, system will let you load all the different equipment that needs to be taken on, and those equipment will be loaded into the sales order. The contract will also be used for costing the job. So if I click on this contract number, it would take me to the contract maintenance program, and I can see my different tasks that I have. But in this case, I'm just going to select a door installation template, and system will let me enter if all the labor and material are covered, what's the total for the contract. If I do not want to get it from the contract, I want to be able to manually override it. It would show me the items that I've set up as part of that, and I can see if I wanted to load them. If I come to the sales order, now I would see that those items got loaded into my transaction. So it's a contract now got generated, got assigned to this sales order. Now, any item processed on this sales order, when this sales order is invoiced, will get automatically loaded to that contract. Of course, there's a checkbox in the inventory that lets you define whether or not that item should be added to the contract. So if you have some parts that are consumables, they're just parts that you use as part of doing the work, and you do not need to load them as a contract item, then they would be flagged as such, and they would not be added. The next thing I do, if I'm doing an installation, I'll click on installation management, and here system will let me manage certain steps, certain functions that need to happen before I can schedule the work order to be worked on in the field. Now, each one of these fields is a security event, so its system would not let would not allow a user that does not have the security to check these boxes. So, and you can set up the system that a service ticket could not be dispatched unless some of these checkboxes are checked. So the system manages that. Of course, we have a nice program that would let you manage what tasks you need to work on. So in the sales order module, we give you the ability to, depending on what your role is in the company, just leave all the other options ignored and just check that one that you are responsible for, that function that you're responsible for, in this case the credit approved, and see all the orders that I need to drill down and basically credit approved. So it's a very easy way to have folks work on the different steps. Now if an order is approved and someone makes any changes to it, then this change order box is checked and any changes are tracked in a memo stored with that sales order. So one other thing I failed to mention is that you can create a contract while the sales order has a type of quotation. So if you are going to be doing some work on this installation, the system will track the labor and possibly parts use. And if you do not win that opportunity, you'll have the ability to print reports and see how much time you're spending on projects that you're not getting. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create some tasks. And tasks are created from the sales order module and loaded on the scheduling board based on the routings and the bill of material records that I've created. So in this case, I have a residential garage door that I'm going to enter, and the system will ask me if it's a custom installation, if I'm going to do a tear down, if I'm going to do a haul away. And based on the entries here and the routing that is linked to this item, system would create tasks and load them on the scheduling board. So I'm going to quickly bring up a routing transaction so you see how routing transactions work. So if I bring up this door installation, you would see that I created a routing for door installation. I've said typically for a door installation, these are the tasks that I want created and loaded on the scheduling board. Now you can have 2 of them, you can have 8 of them, you can have as many of them you want. As I mentioned, these routings are linked to both the main item as well as the options. Each option selected can have its own routing. So those are selected. Now in this case, if I click on generate, the system would go ahead and generate some tasks. Those tasks get added to the scheduling board, but they're also displayed here. And there's a two-way link between the sales order and the scheduling board. So if someone from the customer service makes a change here to the technician allowed, or the quoted hours or dollars, the scheduling board person is aware of that. Or if the scheduling board person makes a change, you have the ability, So these are some of the tasks that I created. I just created from here. As I mentioned, we have the ability to drag and drop him and move him from one person, one day to the other, and so forth and so on. So with that said, we've covered creation of a task and scheduling and dispatching, and we've discussed how installation tasks could get created from the sales order module and get loaded. Again, please keep in mind that you can have many different views. So the installation manager has perhaps its own view with the tasks displayed being only the type of installation that are defined in the routing, and the person who schedules the daily, technician calls for repairs has its own view. And if you have doing an in-house repair, you can do that, as well as different offices can have their own view. Many of our customers also use the software for doing the truck scheduling, giving its ability to link with the Google Map. One of the other things I want to show you is the ability to create contracts for preventive maintenance work. So preventive maintenance tasks are created in the system, and the system allows you to enter what items need to be worked on. So that those are entered here as part of the schedule. So preventive maintenance visits could be linked to the template item, and they automatically would get generated when that sales ordering was. So when you sell an item, all the preventive maintenance stops. Once a month we need to do this, once a quarter we need to do this. are loaded from the template contract into the event, as well as any warranty information. So you can enter as part of your template contract, when we do sell this pump, what products, whether skill code or labor code. And skill code could be used for grouping of labor codes, maybe electrical parts or maybe mechanical parts, framing is covered, not covered, for how long or for discounted, as well as any item. So the grouping of items, the specific labor code, specific skill code, for what duration you're able to enter here. And what happened is the system gives you the ability to renew contracts. So when the contract is initially created for so many years, depending on the template contract, but as part of that contract renewal, you can enter what type of transaction you want created when it comes time to renew the contract, and whether the information should come from the header or the line items entered the contract. And what the system would do when the time comes, it would create the transaction, and when that transaction created is updated, it will come back to the contract and extend the contract duration. So in our system, we let you have three settings: one for contracts duration extension, one for invoicing. So you can have a situation that the contract is for 3 years, but you invoice the customer once a quarter or once a year. And of course, your visits could be scheduled all throughout the year, and the visits could have some items that are billable, some items that are not billable. Of course, you have settings here that you can specify for all the labors. So materials are covered. You can do things like honor revenue tracking. It will let you define the periods that you need to recognize the revenue. So when you update like an annual support contract, it will not recognize the revenue day one. So, from the menu, you have the ability to generate the renewal contract documents, auto-generated contract sales documents, and you also have the ability to generate your tasks. So this program lets you create the tasks for all the service calls that are due PD generated. So every time you generate a task and you close that task, the system tracks that date, and knowing the frequency as to when it should create the next task, the system would create the next task and load it on the scheduling.